Somebody's going to move up to get him or something, and it may work out. It may not, but somebody's going to end up doing it. I'm just saying that if you're ranking what may be about 20 or so first round grades overall in this draft, the quarterbacks are not going to be one of them in my
Yeah.
mind.
Don McMullen, Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. We got an esteemed guest to join us. One of the best radio spots when it comes to talking about scouting and roster building and the combine and trying to pick free agents and the like. We're going to tap into him for his expertise for the next 25, 30 minutes or so. Chris Landry from Landry Football joins us here on LandryFootball.com. His podcast on his website as well. You got to check out Chris, Jody McDonald, and John McMullen here. How you been, bud?
I've been good, guys. How are you guys doing? How's the new year starting? I guess it's not new anymore.
Almost new league year though, Chris, and that's
Yes.
what's exciting for us. But I guess we'll start there. And I wanted to ask you because you have so much experience around this league. When you look at the coaching carousel and how things have changed over the years, I don't know. To me, it comes across as somebody on the outside looking in as a bit of a cookie cutter approach. Do you get the same feeling as teams maybe too much copycatting, or do you think um, there's some deep sort of discussion in they're getting away from groupthink?
I think there's there's a lot of validity of what you said. I think what we're getting is a lot of folks that are getting into just generalized, what I call generalized analytics, which is how other people are doing it, which is another word for copycat, um, which worked in the past. Um, you know, you see Kyle Shanahan having success. You see Sean McVay having success. You see, Zach Taylor having success. Let's go. So who's the next guy? Well, Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell. I mean, you see a lot of that. And a lot of it is what works is what's working. There's a lot of belief that in terms of coaching, you've got to get the quarterback situation right. So having somebody, either it's the head guy or somebody that's really strong, that's up and coming, that's good at identifying, evaluating, and coaching up the quarterback situation, because you're really behind the eight ball if you don't have one. It doesn't guarantee you that you're going to win one, but it guarantees you that you're not going to win if you don't have one. So I think a lot of that is cookie cutter, copycat. And look, I mean, you can look at it both ways. I'm rooted in the football background. So coaching and scouting, this is a business, but it's the business of football. So I want people that know how to evaluate coaches and know what it's like to coach, and also people that evaluate potential GMs, people that know how to evaluate. And to me, that's coaches and scouts. If you haven't done it, then if you're not, when you're in that position and you get that job, then how do you evaluate something that you've never done yourself? But a lot of people don't think that way. And I do think a lot of football people, though, have kind of ruined their own nest, so to speak, because they hire their buds and they think, and they don't think enough. They're a little too myopic in the way they think. So I think, look, I do a lot of coaching search work, a lot of front office search work, college and the NFL. And look, I'm glad people are not really good at it, because it keeps me in business, so to speak. Because quite frankly, you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked. I mean, some of these people they're getting GM jobs, and they really have no background in football, but due to the salary cap, due to that, I think that has some real merit to have business analytics and people like that involved in the organization. But when they get in the organization, sometimes they develop that relationship with the owner and they end up being the chief guy. And then, of course, when they're doing that, and then they tend to be involved maybe too much in the football decisions. But some people that have a good personality or have a good way and don't have an ego that's out of control, they can listen to football people and kind of be the mediator in the room and to listen through it. but and ask the right questions, because I think that's important. I always think that if your head coach is not only got to be good at certain things, he's got to lead. He's got to lead the team, but he's got to lead the staff. And if your staff doesn't respect the head coach's football acumen, if the head coach can't coach the coaches, well, then I think you're going to have a problem there. And I think the same thing personally in the GM world, although that's becoming more muddied. I think who's scouting the scouts, who's coaching the scouts, and but there's some people that are maybe just fit as evaluators and are not as good at dealing with the cap and things. So it's basically like they're coming through the side door, and this is where we've got, I think, a lot of this cookie cutter thinking that you speak of, as opposed to say, I know who I'm going to hire as a coach and hire as my GM, and I think this is a good fit because of my just experience of doing both. I mean, those are the things that I see different.
Chris, it's great that you took it down the analytical road, because that's right where I wanted to go. John and I were discussing this right before you came on. I said there's a new wrinkle to trying to evaluate players at the combine this year, in that players will have, I think most, and some might be actually a pretty good chunk of change, have made money with the new NIL and college football. It used to be you were getting a kid. He was desperate to get to the NFL. He wanted to start his job, which is a pretty good job to play football for a lot of money, but first chance ever to make some cash. Well, now you got a different group of individuals moving into the league, guys who've already made money playing college football. So you need to determine how motivated are they just to play, the love of the game. That's something you can't put an analytical number on. How tough is that? Different teams do it differently with different questions. And when they get a chance to interview the kid, everybody's got their own little style and the like. How difficult, how important is that to be able to judge how much a guy really loves playing football?
Well, I think it goes down to knowing how to scout and how to evaluate. Scouting is about looking at film. It's about being out there at practice, but it's about having deep-rooted relationships with coaches that coach these players. So you're not going to get a coach to come out on a show like this or something and say, yeah, my guy that's coming out, he really doesn't work very hard. They're going to say positive things. But when you have relationships, and in some cases you're able to help those coaches in their career, you can have conversations that will say, look, my guy's, look, he needs to be led to the trough now. He's got to. You need to kick him in the pants, and you have to know over years of experience. The equipment managers, the trainers, because a lot of coaches change over the years, right? But usually the trainers and the equipment guys, the academic advisors, the secretaries in the office, you get to know them. You've gone to that school for 20 years, and you bring donuts and you bring little gifts and things. You develop a friendship with them, and you can pull them aside and say, and they'll be, look, I had the role when I was coaching in college at LSU, and I learned early on the worst thing you can do is say the great things about every one of your players, because if it's not true, it's going to hurt when you say something good about a player in the future. They're not going to believe you. So just tell it like it is in a tactful way. That's not going to hurt your program. But you got to know the player as much as you can, and then you go to the film. What is he doing? Is he working hard? What type of practice player is he? What happens when the eyes are not watching him? You've got to find that out. Does he play hard? Does he play hard for 4 quarters? Does he play in all the games? That tells you a lot. You can't measure heart. You're correct, but there are what I call heart indicators. There are things that players with heart and desire do that others tend to take shortcuts on. I just, look, I begged, loved him, but he was quirky. I told Al Davis, I told Bruce Kebrick, do not draft Jamarcus Russell. He's going to be a killer. He is a coach killer. He's an organizational killer. And this was before the recent salary CBA where the rookie salary. It's like, he had to. I mean, he was the easiest bust ever. But I knew him from high school. I knew him from way back. I was in the NFL at the time, and I was doing consulting work, but I knew him. It's just, I don't know that I can answer it other than you have to know it, and I think a lot of people don't. And, you can't get it figured out in a 15-minute interview at the combine. When I was running the combine, you could have a lot more time with the guys. Now it's just 15 minutes, and it's just like a quick audition for Broadway. I don't know. I don't even know. Not that I know what that's like. It's just, you're not going to get it. So you got to go down. You're going to hear about this. Well, so-and-so, the Eagles are going down to XYZ campus, and they're going to visit. When we drafted Steve McNair, when we drafted Eddie George, when we drafted Javon, on and on and on, we didn't make that decision until, in the end, we got to know them. And the best way we did is, after knowing all the things that we need to know about them, we went down and visited with them for an entire day, and we grilled them, and you don't ask them if they like football. No one's going to tell you, heck no, I don't like football. I just like the money. You ask them things that are going to tell you whether they like football. What was that? What were you thinking there in the Alabama game on third down? That'll tell you right there. The guy that knows football, that loves football, will tell you, Coach, I tell you, I showed my hat too high. I got, we were in the wrong defense. He'll know. The guy that done that, I don't know. I'm just doing what my coach tells me. Little things like that will tell me right away what a guy is or what a guy isn't.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Chris, because as you mentioned, when you were doing it, people had a lot more time and things are more streamlined now. And you get these 10, 15-minute meetings. And how much do you get? It's like a job interview. Before you came on, I was saying it. Anybody who's ever had a job interview, well, you don't go into that job interview going, oh, I'm terrible. I'm not qualified for this job. You try to make yourself look as good as humanly possible. So those little tricks of the trade that everybody kind of wants to do away with and wants to put that analytical number on it, it doesn't exist. So how do you do it in today's environment?
Well, here's what I do. Is exactly what I do. Because 15 minutes, you don't have much time. You're right. I'm going to sound like a jerk, but I learned this from Belichick. So here's what you do. You got a guy, you got a little bit of information. The other thing that, John, that to throw into what you just said is the agents hire people to train them on interviews. So it's like they come in and they're like robot and they know what to say. So we try to throw them off. You come in, guy comes in, we'll have the tape pause to the worst play this guy ever played. You come in, what the bleep was this, Jody? I mean, you got to be kidding me. Your ass is going to be gone in the 1 week in this league. Set them off, get them, and see how they react, and how they react. Put them in a difficult environment. I know that people are listening saying, boy, you're really a jerk. Well, yeah, but it is.
Gotta be.
Yeah, you just got, okay. The other thing is you got to take it off script. Most of the time I didn't do that. That's not how I do it every time. You just have maybe 2 minutes. How you doing? Whatever. How's it? Boom, boom, boom. Move you. And then all of a sudden take it in a different direction. Just, hey, niceties. How you doing? Boom. Florida again. Third down. What happened? You just, what do you do? I'm in this situation. We got this situation here. How are you going to handle it? All of a sudden, they haven't prepared for that. Now you get the real guy because you've given them something that is unique to what you might want to know, that's opposed to the generic. Yeah, the generic 15 questions that you get in. Oh my God, by the time who has the best interview with the player? The one that he goes in on the fifth interview with, because by the time he's heard it 5 times, he already knows it. So you have to break that cycle. Look, you just have to get to know the guy, but the guy going in and you know what to ask. He knows that he got kicked off the team one spring 2 years ago. There was something that happened with a laptop that whatever. So he knows he's going to get asked about it. So he's going. But then there are other things he may not know about, and those things are things that you have to do. It's not a cookie cutter. To your point, you can't be cookie cutter. You have to be unique about what we're going to know. And look, we didn't try to interview everybody. The other thing is, in addition to the official interviews, the position coaches have some free time with these guys that we send the position coaches, because while the offensive line may be working out, the defensive line coaches can be at what we call the train station, which is the Union station where the players stay, and at Indy, for example, and they're sitting down with them and having a Coke or whatever, and you can maybe get to learn a little bit more about it. And you just kind of piece it together. You East-West game, the Senior Bowl, then you bring them into your facility. You go to their facility. It's not – I know this is going to disappoint everybody, but everybody got their mock drafts and all that. None of these – it's all guessing and for clicks, because these teams are still in the evaluation period, because the coaches are getting involved now. Now, the teams that haven't made the playoffs have been involved for 5 weeks. Obviously, the teams in the playoffs, less time. But it's an evolving process. And they're just still, as coaches, getting to look at film. Pro personnel, the college scouts – have been doing this for a while, but the pro personnel department is involved in free agency. You start to combine the information of, you figure out what your needs are going to be, your strategy is going to be, but the evaluation process of these players, people are saying, well, how could a guy move up? The season's over. Because you're not finishing watching all the tape. You can't, when the season is going on, I like to equate it, looking at film during the season, is like running on the treadmill. You're running, but you're not going anywhere. Because you got all sorts of games every week, right? Yeah. So you can't look at every game every week. By March, I'm going to be able to look at 9, 10, 11 games of all these top guys. But in January 1st, it's not possible to do that. Now, that's why you got area scouts, you got region guys, and then as you get more and more tape, then you can start to collate it, bring it all together. And only then, here's the thing too, people don't set their draft boards until their final meetings in April. Oh, they've got a board, but it is not looking anything like it's going to look like April 10th.
All right, I want to talk to you about your fluid board, because as you say, we got months before the draft actually hits us, so I know full well you've got more tape work to do. But the preliminary stuff you've done, this year's quarterback class, because there's a big debate in Philadelphia as to whether the Eagles will or should be looking at a quarterback in this draft or just stay with Jalen Hurts. How would you describe this year's quarterback class as compared to others and or futures? Good, bad, indifferent? If you want to specifically talk about any individual players, please do so. But I'm asking you about the entire quarterback class. How does it rank with what you've seen previously?
I would, if I had to do the one word, I'd say risky. Because there is not a player, and again, I'm not done. I reserve the right to change it if I see, but there's not a quarterback in this draft that I'll have a first-round grade on. But there'll be 3 go in the first round. We've discussed that in the past. You don't have 32 first-round grades. None of these quarterbacks are first-round value. But usually if you're second-round value, particularly high second-round value, you're going in the first round. Look, Kenny Pickett is a really good player that I like. He could be a Kirk Cousins type of guy, maybe a tad better. We'll see in time with development. Matt Corral is as tough as nails. But a developmental guy that is in an offense where they scheme guys open pretty effectively. But again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take them, but you're going to have to overtake them. You're going to have to take them higher. Sam Howell is a guy that is maybe a better attitude version of a Baker Mayfield with not quite as risky nature, but he's got some of the similar build and style. So I think those things is how I would classify it. You just, if you want one, you need one, you're going to have to reach for them and take them. And that's just, you're going to have to live with it. And because of what we talked about, that you're not having to pay the money like you pay a Sam Bradford by taking him one, whatever, then, hey, a lot of guys feel like if I don't have one and I kind of like this guy, in order to get him, I'm going to have to take him at 15 or whatever. Then you take him. If it doesn't work out, they won't ever tell you this, then we got to try again, because if we don't get one, we're in trouble. And look, Jalen Hurts has actually done even better than I thought he would. A lot of guys, a lot of people like Mahomes, but wasn't, crazy about. I love Josh Allen. A lot of people say, oh, that's too high, but physical gifts were there. So keep in mind that people will look at past guys and say, you know what? Buffalo's pretty glad that they took a chance. And, a team like the Saints is probably disappointed that they probably didn't move ahead to take Mahomes, because that was something they were thinking of doing at the time. And of course, the Chiefs did. And so a lot of that's going to factor in, but it's not a great group. The thing at the top of the graph is we're not going to have how high they're going to go. Look, I'm not going to sit here and predict, because guys will get antsy and they're going to go higher and higher and higher.
Oh yeah.
What can I guarantee you that one of those quarterbacks is not going to go in the top 10? Absolutely not, because somebody's going to take the cheese. Somebody's going to move up to get them or something, and it may work out. It may not, but somebody's going to end up doing it. I'm just saying that if you're ranking what may be about 20 or so first-round grades overall in this draft, the quarterbacks are not going to be one of them in my mind.
Chris, you mentioned draft boards, and I think this is always interesting for fans. So I want you to tell them it's April 28th. So draft nights, the Eagles will use, as we're here in Philadelphia, they have 10 picks. What is that? I think this always surprises fans. What is that draft board? What does it whittle down to for the average team? How many prospects do they have on that actual draft board? I think fans look at it and they see Bob's draft site has top 300, and they don't realize how they whittle it down. What is the smallest draft board you've ever seen or heard of, and what's the largest draft board?
Well, first of all, they're two different boards.
Yeah.
So you've got a board, what we call the vertical board, which is by vertical and horizontal. Yeah. Vertical is just by position. So you got all the players in their rank, but the horizontal board's the best players regardless of position, and those are kind of the fit of where you want. So to your point, and the people understand that, you're going to have the vertical board. You're going to have all sorts of names because you track what everybody else is doing, but those are not, many of those guys are not guys you would take at any point. But the smaller, so 65, but Belichick will have 65, 75 top. You do your draft board with 150. The way I always do it, it's a cutoff point. It's usually, the grading scale, I won't bore you with. That's a 20, 30 minute conversation in that. But like a 5.5 grade or above, and so you may not have 150 guys. You may have 165, or I may take it to. That's all you need. Because, but here's the other thing is you still have the other board, because when the draft gets to completion, then you really begin to work in the 7th round where you might maneuver in getting an extra 7th round pick to take a guy that you've got graded with a 4th round grade that you don't want to have to compete with 8 other teams to sign him as an undrafted free agent. And this is why people say, why is the draft so long, the 7th round? Because you're getting two, in your opinion, 4th round graded players. Now, you may be wrong in your evaluations, you may be right, but so to answer your question, to use a generic number, 150, which can be anywhere from 100, could be anywhere from 175, let's say. 150 is kind of usually a sweet spot, but your cutoff point should be at a grade, because, if you've got 15 players with 5.5 grades, and all 15 of them should be in that 150 board. Or if your cutoff point's a little bit higher, maybe less. So that's how I do it, and I think it's the most teams that I work with do it similarly.
All right, Chris, I want to tie the last answer you gave to my question. The size of your draft board, the look of your draft board. Your draft board right now in February, certainly different than what's going to look like in April. In between those two dates is free agency.
Yes.
Going to kick off first of the year, March 16th. You fill some void, you get some players, some guys walk away. Part of that fluidity is that guys come and go from your roster. But when they come, how much of an effect does that have on the draft board? You got your draft board now. Yeah. You think you know what your needs are, but then you fill your needs and or other needs are created that you weren't banking on. What's the most drastic you've seen a team just have to change their draft board from completely different to what it becomes in April? Because there's an important facet in between called free agency.
Okay. Great question. Great points. First of all, you should never change the draft board based upon need.
That's why I asked, but I know. Okay. You know it happens. I know it happens.
Well, no. Here's the thing. Here's the two different things. You can't make a player better or worse based on need. Now, you can go ahead and say, look, we're really good and we need a tackle we can reach. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's strategy. That doesn't make the player better. But here's how it worked. You just mentioned it in between. Free agency comes first. So here's what happens after the season. The first step is what? You evaluate your team. Your position coaches, your coordinators, everybody in your personnel department evaluate your team. How did each guys graduate? How do we evaluate each of these guys? How do they grade out? What's the priority? What's the contract situation? How much do we think they have left? So on and so forth. And then you compare them to the other guys in the league. So your pro personnel department has been studying pro players all year long. How you got those guys graded? Every player in the league, not just potential free agents, because you don't know who's going to be a free agent. We're going to know on March 16th officially. But you know what? Some of those guys are going to be signed before, and some of those guys that are not expected to be free agents, oodles of them are going to be released by their team. You need to know in a moment's notice, we want that guy. Is he better than our guy? He's a better third tackle than our guy, whatever. So you evaluate your team, you evaluate the league, and that I think the best teams feel needs in free agency and get good value in free agency so that in the draft, it allows you to get the best players. Because filling needs in free agency is easier because you've got guys that are playing in the league, that are successful in the league, that you're grading against guys playing in the league. Fill the needs. Now, sometimes you can't. You know, you've got a guy that you really like, but you're not going to play your third best. You're not going to play a receiver that would be the third best receiver on your team, more money than the other two. You've just now inflated your entire receiver room and you've created problems. So there's a point in your evaluation where you decide, this is how I grade them. This is how I think they're worth. This is how much we pay. And based on that, you fill your needs. Then you go into the draft, you'll still have needs. And you'd ideally like to mesh those needs with value on the board. But I'm just telling you that you can take whoever you want. And Jody, to your point, some people reach and take a player of need. If they take a player of need over a players that are much better on their board, then they have wasted millions of dollars of evaluation because they're taking a lesser player. And we all know needs fluctuate all the time, right? You can have the best linebacking core in the league, and then by midseason, it's the weakest because of injuries and attrition or what have you. So you can't make the need of the position allow you to raise a player's grade. Keep him where he is. I always say, look, no. That's where he's graded. Now, if you want to go there and you want to take him and reach down and take him, you take him. But you take him knowing that's where he is as a player as we got him graded, and he may work out and he doesn't. And you can do that in some cases if you have a good enough roster. But, again, need does not make you an evaluator. It doesn't make you a better player. But you have to fill needs. And sometimes you do that. Look, fill needs later. Because here's the thing. At the top of the draft board, there's greater separation between players. You need a corner. Well, guess what? There's a drop-off after 2. I have drop-off after 1. But in the 3rd round, you're going to have a cluster of those guys. And you have to compare I will do this as far as when we get into that, I will go as far as to say, Mr. Secondary Coach, just to have this as an example. Who do you like better? This guy, be a player on your team, this guy who's on another team, this guy in the draft. And what if the value of the players in the league are not appreciably better than the young guy, then you say, the greater value is in the draft. So you work through that. I know that's a long answer, but you have to be thorough through all aspects to make sure that you don't that's the other thing in free agency. I mean, some of it's like a darn church fair. We're going to get that guy and pay whatever. What have you done? You've just paid a guy and you've just overinflated your roster. And now, what are you going to play your really good players if you played an average player because you feel like, hey, I got this guy? You know that story, the whole winners in free agency. The winners in free agency
they
feel
never
need.
win.
That's right. The winners in free agencies are the ones that get guys on one-year deals, that plug in needs, that gets good value. It's very rarely, and there are some exceptions, very rarely the big money is very rarely does it work. Because remember, most of the people, I know people will laugh when I say this, most of the people in this league are not idiots. So if you've got a team that decides we're not going to keep old Joe here and you're going to overpay for Joe, and they know him a lot better than you do, you better think twice about doing it. Make sure you know what you're doing is what I'm saying.
Agreed.
Chris, last one from me, and everyone follow Chris at Landry Football on Twitter, LandryFootball.com. Obviously does a tremendous job. You bring up something that's always been interesting to me, and I've heard it a couple times from personnel people over the years. So I want to throw it out to you. Wouldn't it make it easier for NFL teams to build rosters if the draft was before free agency?
I don't know that it would. But the problem with that is it's the gap that you have, because at least in pro personnel, the other people that become involved, as you know, I don't know, I'll go back a while. We used to have the draft in January.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know you guys remember, but your listeners are saying, what? Yeah, but you didn't have free agency then. The problem is, at least in free agency, your coaches and everybody that's involved in the decision are more familiar with players in the league than the players in college. Because at least, if you're an Eagles coach, that Giants and Cowboys and everybody you've played, not only do you know that, but when you're getting prepared for the Cowboys and they're playing, you're breaking down film of them playing the Chargers, you know the league better. So it is easier to get ready quicker for free agency through the whole organization than the draft. The draft takes a little bit longer because there's that period of what we try to do with the combine, which is more important than anything, is the medical physicals and things like that. So I think the way they do it is the better way, because I don't think it would be more mistakes getting ready for the draft. And I think there are less mistakes, in getting ready for free agency, because there's more of a known with the players in the league. Not that they're not mistakes, but they're mistakes of aggression. And we're going to pay a ton and we got to overpay because we're the worst team in the league, that sort of thing. But I see it the way it is as the better way to do it. And, if they were to do anything and maybe move, I don't think we need to move the draft back, but we have over time. It used to be, as you guys know, early April, mid-April. I mean, if they did anything, we might move it. Since we moved the combine back a bit more, I could see maybe moving the draft to the first week in May or something, and we might see that move back. But I think free agent, that would move everything back a week or so. Because if you're going to move the Super Bowl back, you're going to move every playoff back, then you need to move the offseason back concurrently so that you still have the same amount of spacing.
No, you're getting ready for both the upcoming free agency and the draft. You got to check out his website, LandryFootball.com. His podcasts are a must leading into free agency and the draft. Veteran college and NFL scout and administrator and coach our buddy Chris Landry here with us on Birds 365. Certainly, CL, we're going to have you on again before the draft kicks off.
Please do.
We thank you much for coming on with us today. We will be in touch. One last thing. What are you going to do with the rest of your day?
Oh, I've got a lot of work. Got a lot of film. I got a lot of the consulting. I got a lot of pre stuff before I head for the combine, and we got to go a little bit earlier for personnel meetings. So I've got a lot of committee stuff I've got to work through. That I call it that junk that I got to work through. But I still got grinding tape. As you mentioned, free agents and the draft's coming up. And by the way, the combine has just gotten unbelievable. I'm sure you guys know when I was running it, it was just the workouts, but it's now the convention. The trainers have their convention, the video directors have their convention, the agents have their convention, and so it's the right before the start of the league year, and so it's just amazing. You can see the GMs. Some of the GMs are not even at the workouts. They're trying to work deals. It's the illegal tampering before the illegal tampering that's going on right now. So, hey, it's always great to be with you guys. Don't be a stranger. Look me up anytime. Take care.
Thanks, we will certainly be in touch and tap into you for your expertise again. Guy's as busy as the day is long, and he carved out a half an hour for us. Grateful for Chris Landry hopping on with us, and we will get him back on again. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Hey, we're running out of show. Come back. We'll put a